Installing a Harley Davidson CB push-to-talk switch and a J&M in the fairing antenna on my 2017 Harley Ultra Limited. In 2017 they didn't put the CB on the bike, and going on trips are finding that it'd be better for us with the CB than the Bluetooth connection. That way we don't have to listen to everyone talk when you have a passenger with you. So here we have in the fairing antenna, the bracket for the CB, Harley Davidson CB, and the new switch, because on the new bike we do not have the push to talk CB switch, which is right here. So we'll be installing this whole switch assembly in, get this all put in. So first what we're going to do is we're going to loosen up these 3 screws that are here on top for the windshield, holding the windshield in. We're going to remove the 2 outer ones completely, and the center one we'll take out partially because we want to make sure we hold that fairing in. Slide the screw back in, because we have 2 screws on this side and 2 screws on this side, on the back side of the fairing. So when we take those screws out, we still have this screw to hold the fairing in. So on the back side of the fairing we have one screw right here, 1 screw on the bottom, same on the other side. So we'll remove this one and this one, which will loosen the fairing up, and then we'll go back to the front. Now that we have both screws removed on both sides, come back to the front. We'll hand and screw this one off. That one out completely. Lift this out very slowly. Then on the back side you have a wire that goes to the headlight. Pull that out. Which would be this one right here. What you do is lift this tab up, unplug it. Now the fairing's completely loose. Lift it off. Put it in a safe place. What we do is we want to, before we take everything apart, is we want to make sure we disconnect the behind the seat here. Find the screw. Unscrew the screw, and then we can pop the seat off. Well, now that the fairing's off, we got to mount this bracket. Now depending on what bike you have, if you have the bike that's mounted, the fairing's mounted to the forks, the bracket will be sitting in here like this. It's on a Road King where the fairing's mounted onto the frame. The bracket sits more like this. It's a little bit different. They definitely don't make it easy to get this in here, but you have to mount the bracket in this smaller area here. There's a hole right here you got to line up, and then there's 2 holes, 2 screws that go sideways, and they talk about torque specs. There's no way you're going to get a torque wrench in here unless you remove this whole bracket. So what I'm going to do is put some blue Loctite on the screws, tighten it down with an Allen wrench, and go from there. And I feel that that'll be good enough. So as soon as I get the bracket mounted, I'll come back, we'll get the radio CB mounted in there and put the screw in there. We'll hold that up. Well, after several attempts dropping the screw, getting a magnet out, I finally got it in there. I have to say it wasn't easy, but I got the Loctite in there, tightening it down. That's the first one. I don't even know if I can get the second one. That's even a little further in. I'll give it a try. I can't get the third one in. I'm going to leave the first one in here, and plus then there's a second one that goes right in the front here. There'll be 2 screws with Loctite, but I'll give it a shot, see how it goes. Well, I finally got the screws in, put the CB in. I read the directions. It says there's only 2 screws going into this one, and that would be the first one. The second hole that's in the bracket actually just goes on a little tab, and it just mounts in that. So there's the first screw, and then the second screw right here. And then you're done. Both screws are with Loctite. Then there's this cable connector right here. There's 2 connectors right here. This one is for your CB. Plugged it in. Next, we're going to hook up the fairing antenna. Here is the connector for the antenna that would go to the rear. That just was sitting right here. Well, now we'll be installing the J&M in the fairing antenna. Comes with a block. Has a 2-sided tape that will be adhered to the fairing. You have your antenna wire that will be run on the right side of the fairing. They give you little holders. You have a ground strap that we'll put on a ground bolt. We have a cable connector to connect to the Harley's antenna if we want to just put on a rear antenna for better distance. And then this connector here will be going right to the back of the CB. So what we'll do is we're going to thread this up. To the back of the CB. Make sure it's nice and tight. And we're going to run it along the wires here, out of the way. What we'll do is run it under some wires here so it stays out of the way. Alright, so what we'll do is we're going to take the cable here, we're going to run it under some of these wires here so it's out of the way. And put the fairing back on. I'm going to connect it. Make sure it's nice and tight. We're going to route the cable underneath all this wire loom right here. Bring the block the corner over here, and then that cable is going to run on the outside of the fairing right here. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab some of the attachments that they gave to hold this wire in. So here's the block that they have all the wires coming out of. They have 3M adhesive, and there's a little corner right here on the fairing that this actually is kind of shaped, and it fits really nice and tucks in there really nicely. So we'll pull the tape off, and then we're going to run this wire right up along the edge here. And then there's also these little tabs. There's 4 of them, and we'll just stick them right along here to hold the cable up and make sure it doesn't fall and stay in place. So here's the existing CB antenna for the rear tour pack, connected to the J&M connector. We have the J&M connector now connected to the CB. Comes down to this little box right here. 3M attached to double face tape to the fairing. Here's the antenna, worked its way up around the right side of the fairing and attached right there with little plastic tabs. Next will be the grounding strap. Run this through here, find a nice way to run it through here down between the forks. What we're going to do is we're going to attach it to that bolt right there and make sure we have a good ground. So we're going to take that off, so the grounding strap on that, tighten it up, and that will be that on all the J&M antenna products. Took the screw out, ran the grounding strap down there. I'm going to screw it back in. And wrench down it pretty hard so it holds. And then we'll be looking really good. Alright, so next we're going to replace the push to talk switch right here. So this controls everything for your boom box, but what we need is the button right here for push to talk for when you want to talk from bike to bike, and now it doesn't come with it, so I had to buy a switch that came with it. So what we're going to do is pull out 2 screws on the back side of this to pull this cover off. We're going to pull these 2 screws off to loosen the whole assembly off. What I'll do is I'll run a little piece of tape right along the top here to kind of line it up with the brake reservoir right up on top, so then when we put it all back together, we can line it up to where it needs to be. So we're going to start off with putting some tape on the top of the bar right here, lining it up with the brake fluid reservoir, so when we put it all back together, we'll be close to where it was. So we're going to unscrew these. When I put all this back together, almost all the screws that I ever work with, I always throw a little blue Loctite on there. Whenever I work on my snowmobiles, throw a little on there, just a little insurance, so when you're out on the trail or if you're on the road, it's just a simple screw you lose out there can change your day from having a good time to having a really bad day. So it just never hurts to play on the cautious side. So then we're gonna, so the Allen wrenches are on this one here. We got a star, so we're gonna loosen them up. You can see once you start loosening up, things start moving. Hold it together. Pull this apart a little bit. That plate off. Drop that down. So we have is now this little assembly right here. They have a little catch right on the back side here that you need to loosen up. It's like a little gear ratchet type thing. And we're going to just slowly pull it off the bar. See, this is what I was talking about, that little, it's like a little gear here, just snaps around the bar right here. So then the cable comes in here, and just kind of tucked in here like that, and then there's 2 plugs, and we're going to get these 2 plugs out. So with these 2 connectors, a lot of times you just get a little pick. You can set that little pick in there, push down, plug comes right out, push down on this one, pop it out, and there. Now from what I've heard, people tend to work on this stuff, change bars, they go to different type of bars, and they tend to break these. So I've heard that you can actually resell these and recoup some of the money that you did spend on the other push to talk switch. So I'll look into that. So we got the new switch. Push the 2 switches wiring back in. Run it the same way they had it before, up and around, tucked in the groove. Goes around the handlebar right here. So your wires are good. Your bar is going to sit right along this edge right here. So you want to make sure that your wires don't get pinched in there. Everything looks good. So I'm going to come back around, hook it in there. You get that little clip I was talking about, the little gear clip. You can hear it click in. and we are darn close to where it needs to be. So we're going to put the assembly back together here. So we're going to grab this side here to piece together. Kind of hugs into there. Grab our round piece here. Get started, get thread started, just to kind of hold things in place. As you can see, things are coming together here. When things start tightening up, you can start lining up with that piece of tape. Make sure nothing's getting pinched, everything's feeling good. Let's screw a little tighter here. Always checking that tape line right there. Everything's looking really good. Sorry about the arm. Alright. So now I'm going to make sure we start tightening that down a little bit more so nothing's moving. Go. Next, we're going to get this cover back on. Got to get some blue Loctite. Put it on there. Yeah, call me crazy. Alright. Start tightening that down. Get it all the way. Make sure everything is fitting nice. Don't do one side all the way and then the other side, kind of go in there a little bit at a time. Make sure nothing's going to bind and get binding, and you start tightening it up, and next thing you know, you crack something. Then you're back at the dealership spending another $100 on some part that you stupidly broke and cracked. There we go. Everything's nice and tight. We'll double check these. Okay. Move the tape. Now we have a push to talk button. So we got the CB mounted, we got the in the fairing antenna mounted, got the push to talk switch mounted. Gotta reconnect the battery, get the seat back on, and I think we'll be ready. Take a trip around Lake Michigan, and maybe it'll be a little better than trying to get the communication where we're turning and doing that kind of stuff.